Spectacular, spectacular, Spider-Man. Spectacular, spectacular, Spider-Man. Spectacular, spectacular, Spider-Man. Spectacular.
Alright, good news. Found the rest of my spider suit. Bad news, I'm still not used to this mask at all. But I'll tell you what, I will wear it for the first 5 to 10 minutes of the review, then I'm taking it off, okay? Can we agree on that compromise? Okay. What's up, what's happening, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Animation Station. You're almost out to stage for anything and everything animation, including live action. In this case, our favorite neighborhood webhead. And welcome to the final live action Spider-Man movie, as of right now. Spider-Man No Way Home. The big movie that brought all three Spider-Men together, while also being just all around an incredible movie that set the stage for a movie almost as great. With Multiverse of Okay, no, I can't do 5-10 minutes of this thing. I'm sorry. It's pushing up on my beard here. Ugh. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still not used to this thing. Maybe I need to shave. Maybe if I shave, it might be a bit less annoying. So, yep. Where's my hat? There we go. There we go. Now it's just like old times again, aside from, the suit. So let's talk about Spider-Man No Way Home, and yes, this one is going to be full on spoilers, and I'm not doing this one alone, because, well, unfortunately my buddy Spider-Phantom couldn't join us this time, which I am a bit sad about, and so is he, but I did find a new friend to bring onto the channel, and you're going to hear his thoughts at the end of hearing my thoughts. So, let's dive right in, shall we? This takes place immediately after the events of Spider-Man Far From Home, where Mysterio has revealed the identity of Spider-Man to the entire world. Now everyone knows he's Spider-Man, and now public opinion is split between him being a hero and being a murderer. And then J. Jonah Jameson's back again, and all that craziness. So, at first, Peter, right from the get-go, Peter doesn't know how to handle the fact that everyone knows he's Spider-Man now. And they get arrested. Well, he ends up getting arrested, and then Ned and MJ and everyone else gets arrested for being his accomplices, as the a-hole cop in the movie puts it. And I also hate how the a-hole cop actually has a good point when he's arguing with May. Like, that is, yeah. I hate it when a-hole cops in movies have good points. Like, then it's just like, well, I don't like you, but I can't argue with you. So, what are we going to do now? So then from there, they end up getting a lawyer to defend them, and they get none other than Matt Murdock, played by Charlie Cox, and confirming that the Netflix Marvel shows are still canon. That was very much needed and a fantastic little cameo. And yes, it is a cameo because he's only in one scene in the movie and then we never see him again. But you know what? He does what he needs to do. And not to mention, we know he's Daredevil because a brick gets thrown through the window of the house and, he catches it with no hesitation. It's crazy. So, yeah, there's that awesome cameo out of the way. And then we move on to the high school where everyone else is just a split. I mean, Flash, of course, is trying to capitalize on this, saying, hey, I was friends with Spider-Man the whole time. I'm going to sell a book and yada, yada, yada. That whole stupid mess. So while they're all doing that, Peter's just trying to, have a normal day at school, which he's just not allowed to do. So he, Ned, and MJ all escape up to the roof of the school, which is kind of like a certain spot in the movies where, he goes to get away from everything. So, on top of this school building, I believe it's a school building. I don't know. Sorry, so many buildings and so much stuff to talk about. I'm going to sound a bit scatterbrained, and I apologize in advance. So, they're on top of the school building, and they decide to make plans to go to MIT, go to Boston, and pretty much a fresh start, despite the fact that, well, everyone still knows you're Spider-Man. But so all those plans are in place, but then they all get rejected in a montage that also has a nice cameo from Dumb E from, the robot, the comedic relief robot from the Iron Man movies. That was a really nice touch. And they end up staying at Happy's place now because staying at their place is too dangerous with all the crazy kooks going around. And one thing I do want to complain about with this movie a little bit, and I know they add this back in later in the extended cut, there was supposed to be a scene in the movie where Spider-Man gets splashed with a huge bucket of green paint by, someone who thinks he's a murderer. And he can't get it out of the suit, so instead he has to flip it, and that's how we get the black and gold suit. Which I think was really nice, and not to mention, it was subtly hinted at in Far From Home, so it doesn't come out of nowhere, it's not forced, and the scene itself would be cool, not to mention, from what I heard, that was going to be Ted Raimi playing the guy that splashed the paint on Spider-Man. And like I said, in the extended cut, they did add that back in, but in the theatrical cut, the one I watched for this review because I don't have time to sit through a near 3-hour-long movie with all the ad stuff they put back in, it is pretty much entirely pointless, which sucks because this suit is cool. I like how they flipped the colors around, even though I don't know why they kept the hands red. That was weird. But anywho, with that problem out of the way, then they all meet up at the place that MJ's working at, this donut and coffee shop, and all three of them read their rejection letters from MIT, so Spidey, after looking at a Halloween decoration on the wall, gets the idea of, why don't I ask Doctor Strange to help me out with this? So he goes to the Sanctum Sanctorum, and yes, I know how to say it right, where it's snowed in because of a blizzard that ended up blowing through the Sanctum Sanctorum in one of their many portals. So he goes to Doctor Strange. They have a great back and forth delivery with one another. Like, seriously, it's funny. And Strange, after Wong's little cameo, like, he's in there for 1 minute and then he just leaves after that. So after Wong's little cameo that almost goes nowhere, they go down to the bottom, pretty much the basement of the Sanctum Sanctorum, to do this spell to help everyone forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But Peter, unfortunately, ends up changing the spell 6 times while he's trying to do it, and it ends up ripping a hole in the multiverse. Yeah, that's bad. Now, granted, Peter's not doing that for selfish reasons. He's doing it because he thinks that all these people should still know who he is. Ned, MJ, Aunt May, Happy, pretty much all the people that knew he was Spider-Man before Mysterio revealed his identity to the world. So, even though Mysterio is, at this point, dead, his presence is still very felt in the movie. And it really puts Peter in a dilemma that he's not been in before. And not to mention, again, J. Jonah Jameson. I'm sorry, I'm going to praise this dude every time he's on screen. So, there's also the nice reveal that this is made by, well, at first it's made by him in his basement with a green screen and a camera. Like, I feel like that's a bit of an homage to YouTubers, how most of us do reviews or shows like that, where we have a fancy green screen in the background while we're discussing, the topic of the day, pretty much. Like, for example, Angry Joe's reviews, where he dresses up and he has his whole background and everything, playing game footage on a little screen. Like, you guys know how green screens work, right? So that was a really nice little detail. And then Peter accidentally reveals to Doctor Strange that he didn't even call the MIT people before he had everyone's memories erased. that's the final straw, and he kicks him out of the Sanctum Sanctorum. Not literally, but he slams the door in his face. So, after that, he realizes that he needs to do something else. So, he calls up Flash, who actually got into MIT, because he's not actual friends with Spider-Man. And he makes a deal with Flash to help him find the recruitment lady from MIT, who's on the bridge. So he goes to the bridge to go and talk to her, but while they're in the middle of talking, his Peter Tingle goes off. Yes, I'm going to call it Peter Tingle because it's funny. And lo and behold, who shows up other than Doc Ock, played once again by Alfred Molina. For the first time, we've seen him on screen in years. Like, I don't really remember Alfred Molina playing any other character in any other movie for at least 10, 11 years. I don't know. Maybe I'm just an idiot. I don't know. Wouldn't be the first time I proved myself to be an idiot. And then both of them, they have an awesome fight scene where Peter is in the Iron Spider suit, so he has the tentacles and the extra arms in the back, and he fights someone who also has appendages like that. And they have a fight, a really great fight that really focuses on the hand-to-hand combat. And yes, the effects are hit and miss, but you're having so much fun, and it's so creative and enjoyable that you don't even care. Like, at that point, you're just like, I don't care how hit or miss these effects look, this fight's awesome, and I'm gonna enjoy it. So, and not to mention, it ends on a really clever part, too, where Doc Ock takes off a piece of his Iron Spider suit, and it looks like he's about to use the technology against him because it's nanotech, and it bonds to his tentacles, giving them a nice red accent to them, even though we don't get to really see him use that red accent in actual battles, but whatever, it still looks cool. And in a really funny twist, Peter's able to Bluetooth connect to the nanotech and take over control of the tentacles. Like, that's a really funny little joke. And not to mention, there's also a really great moment in the movie where Peter's face is revealed to this Doc Ock, and Doc Ock goes, "You're not Peter." Because it's not the one he knows, because he knows Tobey Maguire. He doesn't know Tom Holland. So that's a really nice, clever piece of writing in there to show that, sure, he's fighting Spider-Man, but it's not the Spider-Man that he knows. So he's just as confused as Peter about why all of this is happening. So he uses the tentacles to get the car back up from the side of the bridge. And as a result, the MIT lady tells Peter how he's a hero, and she's going to talk to MIT to get him and his friends in. So you know what? Mission accomplished. So then he returns to Doc Ock and tries to figure out what's going on. Then his Peter Tingle goes off a second time because a familiar-looking bomb gets dropped right in the middle of the bridge. And who would fly out other than the Green Goblin? Played once again by Willem Dafoe, just like in the first movie. Heck, he even has the first suit from the first movie for this brief moment. Until a scene I'm going to get to in a minute. So, while that's all happening and Peter's about ready to fight this guy again, Strange teleports him away and puts Doc Ock behind pretty much a magical prison, along with the Lizard, who is once again voiced by Reese. I'm sorry, I do not know how to pronounce your name correctly. I'm sorry. And yeah, I'm just gonna go into negatives for a minute here because Lizard looks like a reject Koopa Troopa. Like, he looks bad. It is the worst CGI in the whole movie. And it's the only bad CGI in the movie. The rest is just okay to amazing. Like, it's ambitious, but I don't know. His design is just so weird. And once again, he has no snout. Again. Why? Now, Reese himself does a great job voicing this character. Like, he still sounds exactly like he did in Amazing Spider-Man, but that look and that CGI is horrendously bad. Not to mention there's a scene later where he's pretty much written out of a big chunk of the movie and just comes back out of nowhere. Like, Why? Like, that totally wasn't added in the last minute. Like, that part is stupid. That part is beyond stupid, and I will not defend it. But moving away from that, Aunt May ends up calling him about finding another one of the guys there, and it's Norman Osborn, because the Goblin isn't taking over for the brief moment. So, in a nice homage to the first movie, where Willem Dafoe has a inner battle with himself by also, talking with this mask that he has sitting in the first Spider-Man movie, in the Sam Raimi first Spider-Man movie, he has it sitting up on a chair, but in this movie, he has it sitting up on a dumpster. And in a moment that a lot of people applauded, but I was, not gonna lie, a bit sad because it was a part of my childhood. Norman goes against the Goblin for a brief moment and smashes the mask to pieces with a rock. I mean, it works for the character and it works for the moment that it is, but man, that part disappointed me the first time I watched it, because I'm like, oh sweet, I'm gonna see Goblin and he's gonna have the mask again. It's gonna be like my childhood, and why'd you do that? And then I watched the reviews of the other movies. I'm like, oh, that's why, because everyone besides me hates the Goblin mask. Like, they hate Goblin's mask so much, and the filmmakers in return destroyed it. I'm sorry, that part bugs me. I'm one of those people that didn't think the mask was that bad. And not to mention, the whole movie's campy and silly. Like, that whole first movie was silly and campy, so why do people complain about the mask so much? But as I watched the movie continue, I started to understand why. Because this is really Willem Dafoe at his best. Like, he's even better than he was in the first Spider-Man movie. He is scary, he is intimidating, he is frightening, and he is dead-on perfect, pretty much, with his comic book counterpart. But he also has a new look that really allows his face to do all the acting it needs. Like, it's really cool. I like the Goblin's new look, even though it is just a purple hoodie, but whatever. I can deal with it. It looks cool. So, after that struggle in the alley with himself, he goes to Aunt May looking for help as Norman Osborn. And Peter runs over there at first because he's like, Aunt May is in trouble. I need to go save her before she ends up getting kidnapped and or killed. So he runs to the soup kitchen to see her, and he finds them, but it's not a hostile situation like he was expecting. And he still has his suit flipped around. It's still the black and gold suit. So he runs in, and Norman explains what happened to him, like what he last remembers and how he ended up here, and and pretty much acting like a scared man crying out for help. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way, because it works towards his character. The way that he and the Goblin are two different separate personalities that just share a body. Like, the good old Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde scenario. So Peter agrees to help him, and with Aunt May's help, gets him a ride back to the Sanctum Sanctorum, where his friends are waiting, because at this point, Doctor Strange has told him to round everyone up. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around scenes. So, yeah, he goes to the Sanctum Sanctorum, and May tries to tell him to, help him out. And then they go to that scene, and then Norman and Otto see each other again, and they're confused because they both think that both of them are dead. So, but they're dead in their universe, not in this universe. I know multiverse stuff is super confusing, and I will do my best to try and make sense of it. That way, none of you get too confused. So, but before that scene, I'm going to rewind a bit, because I do want to talk about the scene with Electro and Sandman. So, Doctor Strange pretty much tasks Peter with fixing his own mess by taking the brace thing off his black and gold suit, enchanting it with magic web that with one shot it'll put them in a magic prison. So, with Ned and MJ's help, and the funniest line in the movie, Scooby-Doo this shit! Sorry, that's the funniest line in the movie to me. He goes to this military base and he finds Electro. And in this case, he's still technically the blue Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2. And as he's fighting him, Sandman shows up. And instead of him trying to attack Peter, like most of the villains have done so far, instead, he helps him take down Electro. Like, that's a really nice bit of character development that shows how much his character has grown since Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3. Like, he's really grown since then. And in this part, he doesn't hate Spider-Man anymore. He wants to help. So he helps him take down Electro, and in case, they quickly get the blue stuff out of here, and they put they give Jamie Foxx his body back, pretty much. And Jamie Foxx is confused. They have a little bit of back and forth, and then Peter flips him back into the magic prison. And it does obviously anger Sandman, because he doesn't know what's going on, but then he flips him too. And they all start having this revelation of, why are we all here? Like, it's pretty much because all of them died fighting Spider-Man, in a way. But I'll get to that in a minute. I want to keep talking about these other scenes. So, before all this, there's a scene with Otto Octavius and the main three, you know, Peter, MJ, and Ned, in the basement of the Sanctum Sanctorum, or the underground, I don't remember what he calls it. It's under something. So, in the under something, I'm just going to call it the Sanctorum basement, whatever. The Sanctorum basement, they start having a talk, and Otto's still very confused because, well, he's like, well, it can't be Norman Osborn because he died. He's dead. You're going out to fight a ghost, as the way Alfred Molina puts it. So, after all that, and they're all together and everything starts coming together. And Strange puts Norman behind the magic prison, and he reveals this magic box that has contained the misuse spell, and he's going to use it to fix everything pretty much. But then, empowered by the words that May taught him, and realizing that when they all go back to their universes, aside from Lizard and Sandman, they all die. So, of course, Peter doesn't want that. So, he goes against Doctor Strange, and for no extra additional charge, we get an awesome battle with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, where we get a repeat of that really cool scene that was used in both Infinity War to knock Hulk out of his body, and the first Doctor Strange to knock Doctor Strange out of his body. But even though he does that, Strange still can't grab the box because of the Spidey sense keeping him from being able to grab it, which, yeah, I'll admit that's a bit of a stretch for an explanation, but you know what? Comic books. Give it leeway. So he ends up getting his body back after Strange fails multiple times to get it, so then he takes him to the mirror dimension and things get all kinds of wonky and crazy. Like, it's such a cool fight. Not to mention, Peter beats Doctor Strange's magic with math. Even as someone that absolutely hates math, I cannot help but smile at that. Like, that's a very clever way to win a battle. So, he's stuck over the Grand Canyon, and now they have a new plan to try and cure all these villains, and then send them back. That way they have a second chance at life. Which I think is clever. I think that's a really unique and interesting way to really work that in there. So they all go to Happy's place, and Peter starts using the last remaining Stark technology he has, which is in the back room of Happy's house, to try and cure them all. First up is Doc Ock, and he cures him after a lot of a lot of empty threats from the evil tentacle version of himself, the one who was controlled by the AI. And he gives him back his control, and he's truly grateful. And then he gives the next cure to Electro and talks about that for a minute. And then things start falling apart because this is when Green Goblin starts slowly coming out of Norman Osborn. Like, that's when they both end up switching again. And as the cure is going on Electro, the Peter Tingle goes off again. I'll just put it that way. The Peter Tingle goes off again. Oh, and yeah, one thing I forgot to say. The lazy thing of writing Connors out by saying he just wants to stay in the truck, yeah. That's lazy. They could have found a better way to do that. Like, I don't want to break anything, or some stupid excuse. Like, they could have come up with a better excuse than just say, oh, he wants to stay in the truck. Heck, your mouth doesn't even move when you say it, Peter. Anywho, away from that. The Peter Tingle goes off, and that's when he realizes that, oh no, Goblin's coming back. So he thwips his hand to the side of the house that they're in, that side of the room, the wall. And that's when Norman switches to Goblin. And Goblin is scary. Like, his voice and the way that he's like, gods don't have to choose. We take. Like, through his facial expression, through his tone of voice, it's all just so well done. He's able to pretty much convince everyone that, well, being bad is better than trying to be a goody-goody two-shoes. So, as a result, they all attack Peter, except for Doc Ock, who gets blasted out the window and has to just, pretty much run away. So, we get an awesome one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat fight with Peter and Goblin, and Peter gets his, I know I already said one swear word in this video, but you know what, just allow me this one more, okay? Allow me just this one more swear word. He gets his ass kicked. Like, he gets thrown through several floors, he gets thrown through windows, and even Lizard breaks out of the truck and smashes him through another window right before he runs off. Like, the only thing in this scene that doesn't make sense is getting Sandman to be convinced so quickly to, turn evil again. Like, there's no explanation for that, and they could have really found a better way to, explain it. So after that awesome hand-to-hand fight with great effects and a lot of brutality, May tries to stick Norman with what she thinks is the cure, but it doesn't work. So as a response, Goblin stabs her with the glider and then throws a bomb in Peter's face. Very reminiscent of when he threw a bomb in Tobey Maguire Peter Parker's face in the first Spider-Man film. And while all this is going on, J. Jonah Jameson and his crew are filming outside, and there's police helicopters and all that stuff. And this is when we get the reveal that there's no Uncle Ben in this universe. And the Uncle Ben of this universe is Aunt May, because as she stands up, seemingly okay, she tells Peter to, not be sorry, that he did the right thing, and then says that classic line, with great power also comes great responsibility. And as soon as she says that line, everyone in the theater and everyone watching the movie knew that, this is the part where she has to die. And it's a very tragic death, probably one of the most effective in the entire MCU. Like, it is effective, it is sad, and especially when Happy pulls up and the two of them were dating for a while, and he just sees through that one shot he gets from his window, of this car window, seeing Peter holding May's body. Like, he has that realization, like, she's dead, she's gone. And as a result, he surrenders himself to the police to give Peter enough time to get away, but not before Peter gets shot in the freaking arm by one of the soldiers. Like, yikes. So, So the building is destroyed. All the Stark tech is pretty much gone, and Peter is on his own. And now he has the one person he had that really held his world together and gave him all these good lessons. And the only mentor he had left after Tony Stark died in Endgame is now also dead. So he's at his lowest low, and he doesn't know what to do. Meanwhile, he also sent Peter sent away MJ and Ned with the box, saying that if you don't hear from me, push the button and it's all over. But they don't hear from him, and MJ is about to push the box when Ned, armed with Doctor Strange's ring that Peter stole off of him when he kept him dangling over the Grand Canyon in the mirror reality. Ned somehow has magic, and he makes a portal that he thinks leads into Peter, but instead it's a different Peter, and it's Andrew Garfield. The audience reactions when this scene played in particular was one of the most awesome moments I've seen in pretty much any theater experience I've ever had in my life. Right up there with all the awesome scenes in Sonic 2. It was that hype and it was that insane. So we have a little bit where Andrew really gets to flex his acting, also being dramatic while also being really freaking funny. He gets some of the best lines in the movie. I don't have the tingle thing. I have it. I just don't have it for bread. And then he starts crawling around on the top just to, show that he is Peter Parker and he is Spider-Man. But then MJ gets the idea, well, let's try again. After a while, it's got to lead us to the right Peter. So Ned does it again, and out steps my boy Tobey Maguire. That was the scene, and that was the moment that I screamed in the theater. I screamed like an absolute fanboy, because after all these years, Peter Parker, my childhood, Tobey Maguire, finally came back to the role that arguably made his career. And I love Tobey's role in this movie as kind of like the old mentor to these two other younger guys. Also because, Tobey's the oldest of the three Spider-Mans in real life. So yeah, they have a great conversation, and they also have a great little web battle, because at first Tobey thinks Andrew is a threat and vice versa, so they have a little battle, and then Tobey's able to win because he shoots the web shooter Andrew has on his wrist before he can even, try to do this and web him to the wall. And then they have a little bit more of a dialogue exchange, along with some more really good references to the old school stuff. For example, they talk about how they went to this one spot to just get away from everything. For Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, it was the Chrysler Building. For Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, it was the Empire State Building. And now for this movie, I believe it's not the top of the school. I don't remember what the name of the building is exactly. So MJ realizes the spot that they're trying to talk about that relates to their Peter Parker, and they all go, and before they even have the scene with the three Spider-Men together, they have a nice little scene where all three of them hug and cry over Aunt May's death. They didn't have to go there. They could have just immediately rushed to the three Spider-Men meeting up, but they have a really nice little moment before that where they all just hug each other and cry, and Tom Holland's Peter just really breaks down. It's his lowest low point that he's ever been in the whole series. Happy can't help him, he has no tech, and Aunt May is gone for good. He's at his lowest of low, and he finds a little bit of comfort and a little bit of, being able to let his emotions out when his two friends show up to give him a hug. That moment is just absolutely beautiful. And then they all meet up with the two Spider-Men that actually followed them there, and they jump down from this water tower that's on this building. And they have a great exchange where Tom Holland's Peter is just like, he wants to kill Goblin. Like, he's done trying to be the nice guy, and he thinks that Aunt May died for nothing. And then Peter 2 and Peter 3, as I'm going to call them, because that's pretty much what they're called in the movie and the Funko Pops, they explain how murder didn't help them get past their problems either. Like, Toby talks about how he found the guy that killed Uncle Ben, even though, stupid Spider-Man 3 retcon probably gets written out. And I'm perfectly okay with it, because that retcon was stupid. And he gets what he wants because in the movie, the robber tripped to his death. So, that old tire cliche, like, I'm not going to kill you, but more than likely you're just going to fall to your own death through stupidity, so whatever. And then, in a really nice heart-touching moment that really shows how amazing of an actor Andrew Garfield is, he talks about losing Gwen Stacy. And I know I complained a lot about that scene when I reviewed Amazing Spider-Man 2, but this is the part where it really makes his character and pretty much forgives almost everything that happens in that movie. Where he talks about how he lost his MJ and how he tries to continue being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man because it's what she wanted. It's what he thinks she would want him to do. But after a while, as he says, he stops pulling his punches and he gets rageful, and he pretty much becomes the Batman version of Spider-Man. Like, he becomes vicious, vengeful, angry, and pretty much everything that Toby was afraid of becoming, but ended up diverting away from the light. So, Andrew is trying to steer Tom away from becoming what he's become, because he knows that it's not right, and it's not anyone else's burden to bear but his own. And that's a really nice little scene. Not to mention, this is the scene that also confirms that Aunt May was the Uncle Ben of the MCU Spider-Verse, because they have that scene where with great power comes great responsibility, and Tom looks up at them like, wait, how do you know that? And then they put together, well, Uncle Ben said it. Uncle Ben said it before he died. Like, that moment, it's so good. And then that's when Peter realizes that maybe there's still hope, maybe they can still go with the original plan. And Toby, in a really nice bit of dialogue, says, well, maybe she didn't die for nothing, Peter. Like, just from that one line and Toby's expression, like, it's masterful directing at its absolute best. And the acting is, everyone brings their A game. Everyone, from the minor characters to the major characters to the cameos to the legacy characters to the to the MCU characters. Like, everyone brings their A game. No one's really slacking here. And I know I really tore apart Reese Ifans' Lizard, but it's more for the design and less his performance. His performance is very good in this movie. Anyway, so they all decide, well, let's try to remake the cures again. And this time, Tom has Andrew and Toby to help, and they both, they pick the ones that relate to their universe, because, Andrew's cured the lizard before, so he's like, oh, I can do it again, leave it to me. So he goes to this side of the room. And then Toby talks about how he wanted to, he's always thought about making an anti-serum for Dr. Osborn. He's actually been thinking about it for a long time, since the events of what happened in his universe with Dr. Osborn. And at first, like, Tom's sitting there like, no, we're not going to cure him, we're going to kill him. Like, he doesn't say it, you can just tell by his facial expression. And then Toby looks at him like, hey, we got to cure them all, right? And then that's that. And then, if that wasn't enough, then we have this whole scene in the school laboratory, which is just full of nods and references to both of the other Spider-Verses. Like, for example, well, I'm actually going to talk about every single one of them, but I'm going to try to go in some sequential order. So it starts with Ned talking to Toby about how, well, asking if he had a best friend, if he had a number two, if he had the man in the chair, as Ned puts it throughout the movies. And Toby says, yeah, I did have a best friend. And he died in my arms while trying to kill me. Like, it's funny, but it's also kind of sad because you can hear the pain in his voice. Like, he did lose his best friend. Like, that's a scene, that's a moment that's going to stick with him for the rest of his life. And then, after that, then they also have a little talk about relationships, specifically Toby and Andrew. How Toby pretty much encourages Andrew to not give up, because Andrew's sitting there like, no, I don't have time for Peter Parker stuff because of being Spider-Man and everything. And Toby says, well, you know what, don't give up. It may take a while, but you'll find a way to make it work, just like me and MJ. Pretty much confirming that Peter and MJ in the Raimiverse are still together despite everything that happened in Spider-Man 3. Like, I wish they brought Kirsten Dunst back even for just a little cameo, but just having that line in there to reference her, and not to mention, confirm that they're still in a relationship, like, that's a really sweet little moment that they didn't have to add, but they went that distance, they went that far, because they know that this is more than just another Spider-Man movie. It's the Spider-Man movie, and they need to put their best foot forward and give homage and respect to these other two Spider-Verses that came before the MCU one. Like, it's really well done and amazing. And then after an obvious and very hilarious little nod to that infamous pointing meme, where Ned's at the computer and he's like, Peter! And then they all point to each other. Like, it's funny. And then not only that, one of the promo images they did behind the scenes while promoting the movie, they outright did it in all their spider suits. Like, that was also funny, but, like, they had to put the pointing meme in there because it pretty much becomes synonymous with Spider-Man. Because this is a celebration of everything we pretty much love about the wall crawler. Like, it's amazing. So after that hilarious little bit of fan service, Tom comes up with the idea to lure them to the Statue of Liberty, which is now given to Captain America's shield because, Cap's out of this universe at this point. And this is their way of homaging him. And, Peter pretty much obviously reveals this to the world because the dailybugle.net, he calls directly to the Daily Bugle to let them know what's going on and to give him luck because their neighborhood Spider-Man could really use some. Well, that's one of those scenes that just makes you smile every time you hear it. And then we finally have the big battle scene. Well, first we have one little battle scene where they try to work together, but they are obviously not good at it because they never had to work with teams before. Andrew always worked by himself, and Toby only had a little bit of experience working with Harry Osborn. But aside from that, they haven't worked in teams. They haven't been to space. They haven't been in the Avengers like Tom has. Tom has more team experience, so he's able to, do the coordination. But of course, before all that, we have a great scene where Toby and Andrew have more great moments together. We get another really funny reference where Toby's back goes out, and he's like, yeah, it's stiff from all the swinging. And we also get the reveal that Andrew also has that problem too, even though we never see it in the Amazing Spider-Man. You know what? It doesn't matter. It's still really cool. And Andrew cracks Toby's back, pretty much fixing that problem. And then Andrew, in a really nice moment, says, this is so cool, I've always wanted brothers. Like, that's such a beautiful moment. Like, they didn't have to go that far, but they went that far. They went that distance. And then that wasn't enough. Then Tom swings in, and they have more questions, and they talk about more references. Like, there's a reference to Venom. There's a reference to the Rhino from the Amazing Spider-Man universe. And, of course, there's another reference to Thanos. Like, yeah, I fought an alien in space. Yeah, and he was purple. Like, it's that cheesy dialogue that's from the other two Spider-Man MCU movies, but it works here. And these are the kind of interactions you want to see between all three of these Spider-Men, which, for each one, they're all icons of somebody's childhood. Like, there's people like me that grew up with Toby, there's people that grew up with Andrew, and then there's the newest generation that's growing up with Tom. Like, it's all really well done, very well crafted, and just all around amazing, really. Like I could talk about it for hours, man. It's so cool. So then after all that, they all focus up, and then they attempt to try and get everything going, but then, well, again, they don't know how to coordinate, so it doesn't go very well. So then we get the designation of Tom being the leader, Peter 1, and then Toby's Peter 2, and then Peter 3, and they all decide to coordinate. And then we get the amazing swinging scene, and in a really nice little piece of fan service, there's no buildings around them aside from the scaffolding, but they're all the way over here. And the scaffolding's all the way over here where their web can't reach. So what do? They web off of each other's webs. Like, that is really ingenious and just so freaking cool. So then we finally get the big battle. And I know some people say it's a lame climax because it's in the dark and it's hard to see, but no. In my opinion, this is an incredible climax. It's very easy to see and just only gets better with every single rewatch. Seeing all the different details, seeing all the different villains fight each other, and the really nice twist in this movie where, well, sort of twist, where at first it looks like Doc Ock has turned evil again, but then he turns around and cures Electro. Like, really nice little bit there. Also, another nice little bit with Electro is that when he teleports for a split second, you see this lightning form around his face that looks exactly like the mask he had in the comic books. Like, really nice homage there. And then they all have their battles, and it's fantastic. And then the Lizard chases Ned and MJ for a bit, bringing them into the plot. And then when it looks like everything's over and Doctor Strange has arrived and they're about to fix everything, Goblin flies in. And he puts a bomb in the box, releasing the spell and pretty much breaking the whole multiverse apart. Well, it starts to break apart as they're fighting. And then, as that result, MJ gets thrown off the building, and Tom tries to go and save her. But then he gets caught by Goblin, so in turn, and out of a sense of guilt, Andrew saves MJ. It's like his own self-redemption for what happened to Gwen in his universe. Like, such an amazing scene. And then after all that super cool stuff happens, now we get to the final fight in the movie, a one-on-one fight with Tom Holland's Peter Parker versus the Goblin. A one-on-one, hand-to-hand fight, and this time around, Tom is driven by anger and rage. Very reminiscent of when Toby was consumed by the black Venom suit when he fought Flint Marko the first time and gave him a really vicious beating. So, yeah, by this point, all the villains are cured and they all have nice little dialogue exchanges. I especially love the little dialogue exchange between Andrew and Electro, where Electro, well, he just thought Spider-Man was going to be black. And then, in a really nice little Easter egg for us Spider-Man fans paying attention, he says, "I'm sure there's a black Spider-Man out there somewhere." Yeah, that's an homage and an Easter egg to Miles Morales. Which now makes me want to see him in this universe. Like, I want to see him in the MCU now. MCU, get on it. Please bring Miles Morales in here. I'm sure no one will question it. So then we have this one-on-one fight with Goblin and Peter, and this time, Peter whoops Goblin's ass, and it looks like Peter's about to kill him by using the same glider that killed him in his universe, while also the glider he used to kill Aunt May in this universe. And right when Peter goes down for that killing blow, Toby steps in the way, grabs it, and defends Goblin against Tom's rage. And there's no dialogue here. Like, it's all through facial expressions. Like, this is one scene that can't be done in animation. This is the one thing live action can do better than animation. Body language and pure facial expressions, being able to sell everything that's going through each character's head in the scene. And then there's also a brief scene where Toby gets stabbed, and I got really pissed for a minute because I'm sitting there like, oh no, don't tell me they brought him back just to kill him off like cliche legacy movies do. But thankfully, he shakes it off pretty much. And then Tom cures Goblin, and now the Goblin's gone, and now it's just Norman Osborn. And now Norman is pretty much left to contend with everything that he's done. So with all that done, he flies up to Doctor Strange, asking him what's going on. And in a great character moment, he tells him to do the spell again, but this time make anyone and everyone forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And after Peter, showed Doctor Strange how his plan actually worked, well, Ned showed how the plan was working, but you know what I mean. After changing his ideology, Strange goes through an arc and is actually sad. Like, he doesn't want people to forget that Peter is Spider-Man. He doesn't want to forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man because he's changed his ideology and he's changed the way he thinks. And you can hear it in his voice as well. But Peter still says, you know what, do it. This is for the good of mankind. So he says goodbye to Doctor Strange, and then he says goodbye to his friends. And at first, he says, I'm going to come and find you. I'm going to explain everything, and it'll be almost like it was before Mysterio ever revealed my identity. And it's a really heartfelt, touching goodbye because it is a goodbye. Because later on, when Tom goes to visit his friends again, who don't have any memory of him now, instead of telling them telling them truth and putting them back into possible danger, he does the respectful, mature thing and just lets them go and live their lives. Pretty much saying goodbye to these characters in this universe. Like, that's a really heartfelt and touching scene that wasn't hinted at in any of the trailers or any of the marketing whatsoever. It came out of nowhere. And then in another really beautiful scene that came out of nowhere, Peter goes to visit May's grave. And Happy is there as well. And Happy, of course, doesn't know that Peter Parker's Spider-Man. And they have this really nice heart-to-heart where they talk about how her legacy and her values will live on through the people that she impacted the most. Like, that's a really beautiful sentiment. And then it's pretty much all back to basics for Peter Parker because he doesn't have any more Stark tech. He's on his own in an apartment building. No one pretty much knows he exists anymore. And he's pretty much entirely back to basics. Like, this is the culmination of all three of these John Watts MCU Spider-Man movies. Seeing him slowly stripped away of tech, slowly stripped away of everything that mattered most to him, but also giving that uplifting realization that this is, in a way, his origin story. Because now he's pretty much entirely the Peter Parker from the comic books. He has to pay rent. He doesn't have any luxuries anymore. And he doesn't have his suits anymore. He has to literally remake his entire life from scratch. And it's done in such a masterful way that it feels very satisfactory. And not to mention that final swing. That final swing where we finally, after all these years, get a straight-up comic book accurate Spidey suit. That is pretty much a combination of both the suit from the comics because we finally get that super bright cyan blue instead of the dark blue we get from most of these movies. But it's also pretty much a combination of all the best elements of all three spider suits. Because you still have the expressive eyes from Tom's, but you have a symbol that's much like Toby's, but then you have a web design that's very reminiscent of Andrew's. It's amazing. And then if that wasn't already a pretty good note to end on, there are two more scenes we gotta talk about. The mid scene and the post-credit scene, which are now pretty much, standard Marvel at this point. So in the first scene, we have Tom Hardy's Venom being in this bar in this MCU verse, talking to this bar patron about everything that's happened pretty much. And then another really funny little homage to the comic books, Venom's voice in Eddie's head. Edward Brock's head, thank you. Eddie Brock's head says, "Wow, and you thought Lethal Protector was a shit name." But then they get teleported back to their universe, and I was a bit sad, but honestly, I think it kind of made sense. Leaving the goo behind for hopefully a black suit saga of its own in the MCU verse. And then the post-credit scene that happens at the very end of the movie is the trailer for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Yeah, that was a brand new, bold move for Marvel to do. And keep in mind, this was before the trailer was even online. This was the reveal of Multiverse of Madness. Obviously it didn't have that title yet. It just said Doctor Strange will return. But later on, very soon after, we got the actual trailer, we got the title, Multiverse of Madness, and of course the announcement it was being directed by Sam Raimi. Yeah, it pretty much all comes full circle. So yeah, that is pretty much all my thoughts on Spider-Man No Way Home. It's an obvious 11 out of 10. You guys know it's an obvious 11 out of 10, and it's arguably the greatest Spider-Man movie ever made. Only contended with by Into the Spider-Verse. And Across the Spider-Verse, hopefully, if the reviews are anything to believe. This is an incredible Spider-Man movie that really is an homage to the character. It's a perfect conclusion of a great trilogy, and also leaves the door open for more stories to come out of this universe. And of course, we are getting an animated series, Freshman Years, that's going to continue this story and show Peter Parker in college. So, yeah, we'll see what comes of that. But for now, this is the final live-action Spider-Man movie, and it's the best of them all. Even better than Spider-Man 2, in my personal opinion. It has the fan service, but it has the great writing and the masterful directing, and just how everything is handled, brought together, referenced, homaged, while still being an incredible movie all by itself, even without all the legacy attachments. It is a fantastic, phenomenal, outstanding movie that's going to be, well, one of the best in the MCU, the best Spider-Man movie of all time that'll probably never ever be topped, and, of course, one of my favorite movies ever. So, yeah, that concludes this near 1 hour long review. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And when we're done with the live-action Spider-Man, we're not done with the Spider-Man movies just yet, because next we gotta go with the 2 animated films, because yes, I know it's technically out of order because I should have reviewed Into the Spider-Verse before Far From Home, but you know what? I want to review all these movies back to back with each other to really explain everything best. So, yep, we got Into the Spider-Verse tomorrow and a day 1 review of Across the Spider-Verse, and I'm so excited for that movie, bro. So excited. But you guys aren't done yet, because now you get to hear the thoughts of a new friend of mine that I met pretty recently. So, Movie Hero Network, the stage is yours, and as for the rest of you, See you for the next review. Stay spectacular. Stay awesome. I forgot I can only do this with this, so. Yep, thanks for watching. Stay spectacular. And enjoy hearing my friends' thoughts on the movie. Peace.
What's up, guys? It's Jordan, the movie hero Anderson here, your friendly neighborhood movie hero. For those of you who know me, I am a massive Spider-Man fan, so I decided to just review. I am really glad that Jackson reached out to me and had me partake in this. It's gonna be fun. So, Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm excited to dive into my favorite Spider-Man movie. I thought about it. It kind of goes back and forth between No Way Home and Spider-Man 2, but I think Spider-Man No Way Home is the best because you get the best of like 3 different worlds basically, or even more if you include some of the end credits things. But you get the Tobey Maguire, you get Andrew Garfield, you get Tom Holland, you get all of it. So yeah, I'm excited. And for people who know me personally, my favorite properties growing up were always Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, X-Men, actually the 4 I would say Deadpool, and then of course Spider-Man. And if you look around my room right here where I'm filming, you can see a whole bunch of different Spider-Man stuff everywhere. Like you got Spider-Man right there, right above the bed. You got more Spider-Man stuff over there. You got even over there, if you can see, right? And then I pulled a couple things off the wall. Let me set that back up. There you go. I got my little pop figures. There you go. There's one there. The Tom Holland one with the cell phone. If you can see it doing the selfie right there. I got Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man right there. That people tell me it looks like a California raisin. That pop figure. I don't have a Tobey Maguire one. I need a Tobey Maguire one, but I do have a pretty sick looking Venom one. So that's cool. And yeah, I got even more stuff. The obsession goes deep. Let me tell you. So I got this poster, which is like a pretty popular comic book from the Amazing Spider-Man comic cover. I have this day in the life of Peter Parker, where it shows him doing his thing and then battling Venom and Carnage, and teaming up there at the end with Miles Morales and Gwen's Spider-Gwen. And then this one I want to try to get framed somehow. I think it's pretty sick poster of Miles Morales right there. So yeah, eventually I'll get to it, but right now I don't have a spot for it yet. But anyway, let's get into this review. So Spider-Man Home. This movie, it's 2 hours and 28 minutes long, so kind of long for most standards for me, for most movies, but like you don't really feel it. Like this movie just breezes by, like it doesn't really feel too long. Directed by John Watts, which he hasn't really done too much outside of Spider-Man. He did Cop Car with Kevin Bacon. That's really the only other thing I've ever seen from him. And he did these Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, which I think Tom Holland is a great choice for these Spider-Man movies. He can act super well. Like man, this guy is can show the emotion. Like he brings it, and it's awesome. And unfortunately, he's made some kind of poor choices outside of Spider-Man, but he's killed it in like Marvel movies and Avengers, especially Infinity War, when he's one of the guys that disintegrates from the snap from Thanos. So kind of what I wanted to do with this review is break it down into pros and cons. And the funny thing is, I have a huge list of pros, not like little to no cons, honestly. So let's just get the cons out of the way so we can just like be done with all the negativity and we'll get into the positive stuff. So my only cons are are like not even really about the movie specifically, really. It's just really about like this Spider-Man overall. Because definitely I like No Way Home the best. But if I were to rank them, then it goes Spider-Man Homecoming and then Far From Home, which but I like them all. Like they're all great. But my only cons are I'm not a big fan of Zendaya playing Michelle Jones Watson, which Mary J. Watson, they like they allude to it in this movie. It's like just bring back Mary Jane and just have Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy, even Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat, like have her in this thing. But I don't know, like Zendaya is weird and like neurotic and kind of like brooding and dark. Like I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. And then Flash Thompson, he's just like a normal, goofy kind of kid that played by Tony Revolori, which in the comics, like he's a big buff guy, kind of the sports star, the athlete. Like he's, I don't know, like he needs to be that. I feel like I don't know if I love the version that they went with here. And then this, my third and final con isn't even really much of a con. It's just something I've always wondered uh, if Peter Parker has an Uncle Ben in this series. They've never really talked about Uncle Ben or like alluded to it, but like Uncle Ben plays a huge part in Spider-Man's story. So especially yeah, it's like overall, and you don't know if there was an Uncle Ben. If Uncle Ben died somewhere, you don't see a grave, but you do see. And this is before I get too far into this, is spoiler filled, so tune out if you don't want to be spoiled. But this movie's been out for a while. But it does show Aunt May's grave after she dies, but it doesn't show a grave for Uncle Ben. So I don't know if there is. But anyways, those aren't even really cons about this movie. They're just cons about like the overall series. There's really almost no cons. I mean, another little nitpicky con could be some of the CGI looks a little kind of wonky when like the villains are coming in and that kind of thing. But it's not that noticeable to me, at least. But yeah, let's get into my pros, and I have a long list of them. So my pros would probably be definitely. I mean, we already talked about Tom Holland, so let's talk about Jacob Batalon as Ned. Like he's freaking awesome. I think he's hilarious. I think he's funny, and honestly, the way that this movie ends, I wouldn't mind seeing him as like sort of a villain in the next one. Like that would be really cool. But and then also too, people always talk about the MCU tie-ins. I like the MCU tie-ins because if you're going to make him part of the MCU, which I think he should be, then you got to have that connection. That means like a character, or like I don't know, he visits someplace outside of the normal realm where he would be normally doing things, and so you have Batch as Doctor Strange. He goes to Doctor Strange for help, and because it's revealed at the end of Far From Home that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and it's by none other than J.K. Simmons back as J. Jonah Jameson. Yes, like that is inspired casting from the minute he played that actor, and they bring him back kind of like an alternate version, but he's basically doing the same thing. He's got a little different hairstyle and stuff, but yeah, and so he thinks his life is being ruined with everybody knowing, and it's making it tough, and they can't get into college, and he's being accused of the murder of Mysterio, and so he goes to Doctor Strange and has him cast the spell or whatever he does to make everyone forget, but then he screws it up because he keeps trying to add all these different things right in the middle of when he's casting his spell, so it doesn't work. And then also seeing a Benedict Wong, like I freaking love Wong in the MCU. Like he's the glue. He's the glue that holds the MCU together, and like he basically appears in every single MCU property in some way or another, and I love it. Like I think like Benedict Wong's got so much charisma. He's fun. He's awesome. So, and the fact that they reveal that he's the Sorcerer Supreme in this is a cool thing that they do. But yeah, and then I was just gonna talk about just kind of back and forth with some of my favorite scenes, some of my favorite characters, that kind of thing. So that's just to start. But a couple of my scenes that I love from this movie. I love when Peter Parker as Spider-Man has to go toe to toe with Doctor Strange, and they get into the like portal realm or wherever he goes through a portal, and there's some kind of like weird like alternate universe, and where everything's changing the way Doctor Strange does, and he like manipulates matter or like whatever it is, he's changing things, and kind of like Inception style. And yeah, he has a pretty cool battle, and that's where he steals Doctor Strange ring thingy that he calls it or whatever that allows him to make portals, and Ned gets a hold of that, and that's how he's able to bring back some of the other Spider-Men. He's trying to locate his Peter Parker, but then he says find Peter Parker, and then he opens a portal, and all of a sudden it's Andrew Garfield that walks through, and then later on Tobey Maguire, and like who doesn't cheer when those freaking Spider-Mans of old show up again, and they're all together, they're in one movie, you get to see them back, you hear little quick little clips of the music from each of the movies, which is really, really cool, especially the music from Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is like some of my personal favorites. And thing is, like, you bring back the three. We bring like two of the Spider-Men to make three together, and then you have five villains in this thing. And technically, you can maybe say that they're putting together the Sinister Six, but it's just the five villains. So you have Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. You have Alfred Molina as Dr. Octavius. You have Rhys Ifans as the Lizard, Kurt Connors. Then you have Thomas Hayden Church playing the Sandman. You have Jamie Foxx being Electro. So yeah, you have all of those guys together. And then if you wanted to end it out, if they're ever going to do a Sinister Six, it's either going to be Michael Keaton as the Vulture, or it'll be Kraven the Hunter, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character. So I kind of hope that it'll be the Vulture that joins him, and Kraven can be doing his own thing because he works solo. Like, I love Kraven the Hunter. My two favorite villains in a Spider-Man movie are Mysterio, which we got. Jake Gyllenhaal killed it, I thought, and then Kraven the Hunter. So we're getting Aaron Taylor Johnson playing Kraven the Hunter, which how I think they need to go about Kraven the Hunter real quick is that they need to just have one. So you're gonna get a solo movie. So you're setting up the character. Maybe have Spider-Man in it, maybe not, and you get a good storyline of his, and then you get the next Spider-Man 4 should be Kraven's Last Hunt, because that is the most incredible Spider-Man story. It's so good. So yeah, and like some of my favorite Kraven the Hunter stories, since I'm a big Kraven fan. I mean, you have the Road to Hunted, which is like him kind of just like the introduction of Kraven. Then he kind of meets Spider-Man, and he's after him, and he's realizing that he gets every kill that he ever wants. He always catches the person he's after, and so now he's after Spider-Man. So you have the Road to Hunted, or even one. I don't know if they'd ever bring in Squirrel Girl, but there's a comic that I like where he teamed up with Squirrel Girl, and she brings in some good humor into that. And you got to get into Kraven's Last Hunt. So yeah, but because I think that's what everyone wants to see, and that deals with some heavy subject material. Oh, and there's also this version which I didn't show here, but I've got the Ultimate Spider-Man here. So there's some cool stuff with the Ultimate Spider-Man and Kraven that you can kind of see where Kraven is definitely after Spidey, because I got a good there you go. He's right there. He's right here. He's all over this thing. So yeah. But and let's talk about the villains that do appear. So I think that both Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe could have been nominated for an Oscar for this movie, especially Willem Dafoe. Oh my gosh, like he didn't even need the Green Goblin mask. He just like contorted his face to look like the Green Goblin with the hood on and everything, the purple hood. And yeah, it was an incredible performance. Even Jamie Foxx, he was great when he comes down as the like using some of his electricity powers. He has that kind of old school electro look to him with like the little yellow thing sticking out and the electricity all over him, and like that works so much better. They didn't make him blue and like stupid looking like he looked like in Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I mean I actually really like the Amazing Spider-Man, but Amazing Spider-Man 2 is not so good. But the first one's great. The second one had potential, but it didn't work for me. But and probably for a lot of people. Yeah, and it's funny when like Ned, he's like fumbling to like bring the other Spider-Man in, and then he's like when he brings in Tobey Maguire, he's like great, it's just some guy or whatever, and then when Andrew Garfield comes in, he just says he's Peter Parker, and him and Zendaya, they're like, yeah, right, like whatever, they don't like believe him. But and then also too when the three of them finally get together and they coordinate their attacks, like, and they're like really helping each other fight, and then Andrew Garfield's like, he's like, I love you guys, and then just like they work together and they're fighting, and like, man, that was another moment where I wanted to just stand up and cheer. It was freaking awesome, like it was great. So yeah, like, and I don't know if we're ever gonna get that ever again, if those three versions of Spider-Man fighting alongside each other. Like, I mean, I would hope we would see it again, but I mean, who knows? But and then some of the other villains, they didn't do as much. The Lizard kind of got like sidelined almost, like they didn't do much with them. They did a little more with the Sandman, Thomas Hayden Church, but it was fun to see him back there. And one of my other favorite scenes is just the hangout scene when they're on top of the Statue of Liberty, and they're just hanging out. They're just talking about like other villains that they fought before. Like Tobey Maguire's like, I fought this black alien guy that like turned into some kind of goo, and then they're just bringing up I think Andrew Garfield. Oh, he brings up the rhino. He's like, yeah, I fought this Russian guy in a rhino suit. So they do that, and then Tom Maguire gets his back cracked by Andrew Garfield, and then they're just talking about how they get their web fluid. So they're like, so does that web fluid just like come right out of you, or like what? Like they're talking to Tobey Maguire's like, yeah, I don't want to talk about that, and like they're kind of like poking fun at him a little bit. They're like, yeah, like we have to make ours. Like it's a real tedious like process. Like it's a pain. and so yeah, so that's fun. And then there's just little fun scenes with all of them together where like Ned is like, hey Peter, and then they all look at the same time, and that kind of thing when they're in the lab kind of working alongside each other. It's fun. And then of course there's Aunt May. She dies in this thing, and I actually like that she dies, because it actually shows that there's big stakes in the movie. You don't have an Uncle Ben that's gonna die, so you have an Aunt May, and yeah, like I'm glad it actually happens. And especially Tom Holland's reaction to it is like, man, like he knows how to play emotion super well, and like that scene, like I get emotional and teary-eyed every single time. There's literally two scenes where I get emotional in this movie. Is Aunt May's death scene, and then afterwards he just goes nuts on the Green Goblin, just starts just like punching him in the face over and over and over. Willem Dafoe, and just like you can see the emotion, and just like, oh, like he is pissed and sad, and like just like feels all these things all at once. And then the other one is when Andrew Garfield's character saves MJ, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And you can really see the emotion there because we all know what happened to Gwen Stacy. They couldn't save her, and so she died, and so it's like he was almost having kind of flashbacks and PTSD, but he was really happy he was able to save her. So yeah, and also when Aunt May dies, she finally says the line, like it was bound to happen, because I know in the Amazing Spider-Man they like skirt around saying it, but I mean Aunt May just finally comes out and says it. She says, "Look, Peter, you have great power, and with great power comes great responsibility." So they finally say it. They had to say it. So yeah, that was cool that they did it in a movie like this where you have Tobey Maguire there, so it kind of works and doesn't feel kind of like forced or copied from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. But and yeah, I do like the contrast of good and evil with all the villains. It just shows that they actually have some humanity. They do have some heart. You see, like, so like the first scene's really cool when Doc Ock first appears and like, "Hello, Peter," and he's like what happened to the other Peter, and when I harnessed the power of the sun and like all that stuff, and you see a really cool fight scene between those two. You see him controlling his arms. He gets the little whatever it is, device that controls it, and he's controlling it. And then, but then later on, they're able to detach him from his arms, and you see like that the Otto Octavius is actually a nice, like, good guy that just wants to, I don't know, like just be a normal dude, you know. It's like he doesn't want to really necessarily be a villain, but he does become that. And then same with Willem Dafoe, like you see some real humanity out of him until the Green Goblin takes over. You see that with the Sandman. You see it with the Lizard. You see it with Electro. You see it with like all, and they all have those moments of like showing their humanity, showing that they have a good side, but then a very evil side where they're literally trying to kill people. They're trying to kill all the different Spider-Men. They're like everyone. Like, yeah, they have the lust for power or whatever you want to call it. But and yeah, so as far as maybe what villains we might see next, because for me, I think that definitely Spider-Man in the MCU has the best rogues gallery of villains, like by far, of any character. Kind of like in DC, Batman has all the best villains, and you watch a Batman movie, a huge part of it you watch for the villains. Same with Spider-Man, and so like some of the ones that I'm curious if they're ever going to bring into the next movies, like maybe the Shocker, Chameleon, Hydro, the Scorpion, the Hobgoblin, which we got a glimpse of that with James Franco slightly in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. There's Morbius. There's bringing in the Kingpin and making him more central. There's the Black Cat. There's Tombstone. There's Mr. Negative. You can see more of Carnage. The Jackal, or like maybe they do the Rhino, and if they bring back the Rhino, I'd say give Paul Giamatti another shot, but don't make him in some big like mechanical suit. Just make him like just the Rhino from the comics, where he's literally like basically a real Rhino kind of, and he did a little bit of a suit on, but he kind of has those powers to like slam through walls and all that. And like give Paul Giamatti another shot, but do it better, kind of like they upgraded the Jamie Foxx's character, Electro, him much better than what he was in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And yeah, so those are kind of some ones. Oh, and then I'll even throw in a couple other kind of like maybe ones they probably won't do, but maybe there's Alistair Smythe. He's a guy that kind of looked like a gargoyle in the animated series. Because I grew up with the animated series from the 90s. Spider-Man, and they have the like techno stuff in the background. And then also there's there's the doppelganger, which is like the 6-armed Spider-Man. That might maybe happen, because if you look, there's a scene where they're all coming through the portal, and you see some kind of outlines of different characters. One looks like maybe Craven, another looks like the 6-armed Spider-Man. There's a couple of other ones in there. I think one kind of looked like the Scorpion. Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the things that I like is all the different suits that he has. I think that's pretty cool. He's still rocking with the iron suit, but then he also has his homemade throwback, the black suit that looks pretty cool. Which eventually I want to see where like Spider-Man gets infected with the symbiote and then gets a black suit that way. Which we saw kind of that in Spider-Man 3. I mean, we definitely saw it, and I don't know if it works so well with Tobey Maguire going around dancing and all that stuff. But I think Spider-Man 3 gets a bad rap. There's a lot of cool stuff in that movie, but there's a few weird things, like why did you use what's his name from Topher Grace from that 70s show as Eddie Brock? Like that was a weird choice. But and then you literally the end of the movie, you have him in a suit that looks like something from the OG comic books. It's almost kind of similar, I want to say, to this one here. That's suit right there. So I mean, that's the best like look that I have at it. Sorry if it's hard to see that right there, but and yeah, and yeah, that's basically most of my pros, though. There's a couple of things that I'll kind of wrap up with, because I got to talk about the ending, how this movie ends, and I love how this movie ends, because at the end he has Doctor Strange do his little like his hand moving spells and all that stuff, and he has him make everyone forget that he is Spider-Man, and so everybody forgets him. They forget who he is. Like nobody remembers him. Nobody knows, and so you see him go into the cafe where MJ works, and you see MJ in there. I think you see Ned walk in, and like they're friends, but they don't know him, and so now it's up to him to kind of build his new life. And I think in the next movie, like we're finally going to get the miserable Spider-Man. Spider-Man needs to be miserable. He needs to be struggling to pay rent, living on his own, like having relationship issues, like struggling to fight crime and to balance that life. But then nobody knows that he's Spider-Man, and he still saves MJ. He saves Ned, or like whatever it's going to be, and like watches over his family from afar, but he doesn't reveal his identity in order to keep everybody, to keep the people that he loves and he cares about safe. And like we need the miserable Spider-Man that's just like at his wit's end, and like Tom Holland can bring the emotion, he can bring it, and so like I really want to see that miserable Spider-Man that just like is just ready to lay down his life for his friends and for the people that he cares about, people in the city, like all of that stuff. So yeah, and we kind of got some of that within the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. So I hope we get to see more of it here. Like I'm actually really excited for it. So I think it's going to be awesome. I'm like, yeah, Spider-Man 4, I guess, whatever they're going to call it. It's going to be something about home. Whatever they decide to do. You got Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home. It's going to be Spider-Man Home Invasion or whatever. I don't know, but I think he's going to be back to just being the neighborhood Spider-Man. We'll probably see him in like another like Avengers movie or something, because I don't know what the contract is. I know he renewed it, and I know he has like 1 or 2 more times of doing being Spider-Man for Sony, and I think 1 or 2 more times doing it for Marvel. I don't know, like don't quote me on that. Like I just know